I didn't really plan on talking about this, but I haven't made a main channel video in a while, and I'll talk about why that is, but I have some stuff that I really want to talk about. I've been playing the harp since I was 8 years old, and I gotta admit, for a large portion of those years, I didn't think of myself as an artist. In college, I graduated with a couple degrees. One of them was music, and I was playing mostly classical stuff. And then I went into the freelance wedding world around Long Island and the NYC area. And even though I was putting every skill I had into making someone's wedding day the best it could possibly be, I still wasn't calling myself an artist. I was calling myself a professional. In 2019, Russ and I started this YouTube channel, which was originally just me playing harp through effect pedals. And I wasn't playing original music as much as I was kind of just noodling around and playing song covers. But as the channel started to grow and I got more comfortable with improvisation, being silly, and playing my own original music, I still struggled to see myself as an artist, even though I was doing more creative stuff. A lot of this stuff follows me even today, even though I'm doing more conventional artist things like writing soundtracks for video games and films and doing a bunch of super secret creative stuff. I made a post about my new album the other day and someone commented something like, "I didn't know you were an artist. I thought you just reviewed poop pedals." And so this made me want to talk about something that I've struggled with for a long time but eventually overcame. It's serious though. I mean, like, come on. I wanted to address this myth that you need to take yourself very seriously in order to be considered an artist. I mean, you can be an artist and review poop pedals. That makes me mad, which is why I'm talking about this. Like, I'm not gonna sit here like a beret and a cigarette and be like, my soul is so dark and I'm an artist. Like, you can laugh too. We're all gonna die.
Jesus.
You know how sometimes you visit an artist website and everything is like mostly white and like minimalistic and polished and everything looks perfect, and there's like minimal writing except for their About Me page, which is like 5 pages of all their accolades and like every single school they ever went to since they were 5. That's what I thought you needed to have in order to be an artist. And I didn't resonate with that, because the kind of websites that resonate with me look more like this or like this.
When you're strange.
I love him so much. You have to go watch it. While this is the kind of stuff that resonated with me the most, I didn't feel comfortable being lighthearted, silly, and sometimes, like, honestly unhinged when I was being creative. Because I'm a weirdo, and I just didn't feel comfortable showing that to people, because I was like, artists don't do that. I think growing up as a harpist also influenced the way I felt about this. I started playing the harp after I saw Edmar Castaneda playing at a restaurant when I was a kid. And of course, I always loved harpo marks, but these people were outside of the harp world that I found myself in, and I found it to be extremely elitist, and I had a lot of trouble feeling like I belonged. I mean, I was way more comfortable playing harp in the subway stations than I was playing the solo from Waltz of the Flowers at Carnegie Hall. Even as I became really well known and started working on some really amazing projects, the figures and the publications that I grew up around didn't acknowledge me, and some of them still don't. I'm looking at you, Harp Column. I see you.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm just saying, I grew up with that magazine. One of those publications finally interviewed me after I worked on my first DreamWorks film. And in the interview, I had said that I had trouble fitting into the harp world because I thought it was elitist. And they published everything except that part. So, I don't know. I feel like that's important, though, you know? Because it's like, oh, if you're struggling, you can find your way. They don't want you to be outside the box. They like their little shapes. I'm a triangle and you're a square and you fit into the holes, you know? You fit into the round circle goes in the round hole. A harpist can do whatever they want. They can say shit, piss, and poo. Cut that. Don't put that in. Don't put that in. Last year, I was asked to be the very first artist in residence at the Pollock Krasner House here on Long Island out in East Hampton. And it included a series of performances and talks at the house and in galleries around the New York City area. And it culminated in a thesis project which took the form of a 12-track album. A lot of you are probably familiar with Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner. They were artists and partners who worked out in the house in East Hampton, but they never worked together. This was so different from the way that Russ and I work because obviously we share a studio space and we never work on a creative project without the other person. So this started a conversation between us about artistic process. I was doing some research in the archives at MoMA, and I discovered a connection between Lee Krasner and my favorite poet, Frank O'Hara. And I found this work between Frank O'Hara and a partner of his, Larry Rivers, and it was a series of lithographs called Stones. Frank O'Hara provided the words, and Larry Rivers provided the drawings, and they had a rule that neither one of them could work on the stones unless the other person was present. And I really loved this because this mirrored the way that Russ and I work on our projects, because we don't work on anything without each other. Isn't that cool? Isn't that nice?
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
That you're always forced to be around me and work on every single thing I work on. You're so annoying. They were friends and contemporaries of Pollock and Krasner, and it was really interesting to me how different their process was. So this got Russ and I talking about how artistic process can transcend medium, and it influenced us to make a 12-track album inspired by stones. Here it is. This is the album. We worked really hard on it. During my artist residency, I discovered a lot about lithography, and I was even able to connect with some students to make our own lithographs at Stony Brook University. Lithography involves a stone, some paper, and a lot of pressure, and actually, the album artwork for Stone is a lithograph that was made on that day. The great thing about lithography is if you have the original stone, you can reproduce prints as much as you want, but when Frank and Larry were finished making their 12 works, they destroyed their original stone. So you actually can't reproduce their work. It was a finite experience, and it represented that moment when they were together, and you can't reproduce that. It was special. Okay, there were two complicated lovers in a room making a beautiful work, okay, and it's important and it should be talked about. Okay? It's timeless. It's love, okay? It's love. It exists for a time and then it doesn't.
But it's also forever.
Sometimes. The album is out now and you can buy it, and it was important to us that this exists in vinyl only, because for us, the vinyl pressing process speaks of lithography, and the digital files being unavailable to reproduce mirrors the way that Frank and Larry destroyed their original stone. You can't reproduce it. As someone who is so present and published on the internet, it was important to me to make something that wouldn't exist online. I want this listening experience to be intentional and tactile, and the ritual of putting a record onto a record player speaks to that. We also have a team leaking fake versions of this online, so if someone does post the real album, it'll be nearly impossible to know which one is the real one. Maybe you have like a nice listening party with some friends who can be trusted, you know? I don't want this online. This limited edition first pressing has frosted glass vinyl and a 12-inch book that shows the original Stones art and discusses the intention and the connection with each track. If you want one of these, you can find them at the link in the description of this video. Now that it's concluded, I feel like I learned a lot from my residency, and I feel more comfortable calling myself an artist than I ever did before, despite the fact that I sometimes do unhinged and silly things online and don't take myself very seriously.
We're very serious about not being serious. Yeah.
That's it. I'm really serious about not being serious. Between the album, scoring projects, and a bunch of other super secret stuff I can't talk about yet, I haven't posted a main channel YouTube video in about 3 months, but that doesn't mean that I'm not working on them. I've been making content for my 2 other channels and working on YouTube shorts, and I also do a live stream on this channel once a week and 2 additional live streams for YouTube members on this channel. A lot of us like to put things into categories or boxes, and I feel like the artist box usually looks something more like this as opposed to something like this. For me, it's the same way that most people think about the harp as an instrument. Most media associates it with like a regal setting or classical music, and that's pretty different from the way that I portray the harp on my channel. It's especially different from the way that I'm gonna portray it in a video coming next month, but I'm not gonna spoil anything for you. I think the more widely accepted version of being an artist means following through on your ideas, even if they're quiet, slow, or don't always perform well. And being a content creator means packaging ideas for a certain platform. So for example, taking a complicated theme and turning it into a quick YouTube short, making a catchy thumbnail, or coming up with an intriguing video title. But I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. It's like sometimes you're bending your art to fit the platform, and sometimes you're bending the platform to fit your art. And if you're editing your art or framing it in a way that gets it shown to more people, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It just means that you're here in 2025 navigating a massive sea of people who are all fighting to get their art seen as well. Anyway, thank you for listening. You can watch some of my performances and my interviews at the PK House on their YouTube channel, which I'll link below. And you can actually go see the Stones in person because they'll be at the house for a few more weeks. So thank you so much to everyone. You can buy the album if you want to. Otherwise, yeah, thank you for watching. Thanks for being here. I'm excited for more. I'm excited for more videos, more stuff, more art. What else? Listen, frosted glass vinyl is really cool. It took me a long time to pick the color, okay? Shout out to After Hours for making beautiful records. Yeah. That's pretty much it.